She ran into that set of girls she had met the other time, Margaret and co. So one of them hit her arm and she fell on the cobblestone. Do you understand? And she was carrying things she bought. And you know she's a dizzy person. And so if this girl did not have a fencer's training and didn't know how to fall, she might have cracked her skull. And that would have been her death. Instead, she used her palms as a brace and, to catch herself. But she couldn't hold on to those things that she bought. The sugar sprayed. The eggs broke, messed up her skirt, and she felt pain all over her body. None of them tried to help her. They just laughed. And then, because she had to half crawl, half walk away, holding the wall for support, they were laughing at her. Hello, neighbor. It's been like, oh my God, I don't even know, 4 weeks, 5 weeks? Oh my God, how did time fly so much? All I know is just been a long time, and I've missed being here with you and having fun conversations about novels, like telling you stories. So in either case, how are you? I mean, I have a lot I could say on the things I've been up to since I've been away. And the top of it was I wanted to return so bad, because I didn't even think I was going to leave when I did. Like, I was supposed to have another 2 episodes or so before going on that break, and then the break was longer than I expected it to be. God's sake, I recovered. So many things happened, and now that I'm back here, it's like, okay, I'm so excited to be back. And I'm praying for consistency. But in all the weeks I was gone, I kept promoting the episodes of the podcast. They're already available. And I really just kept myself in this momentum of coming back. I completed about 3 novels. I'm like, okay, I know it's not so much compared to how much. Come on, I went on 5 weeks break. I was supposed to read at least maybe 10, but I wasn't able to complete about 4 books or thereabouts. But in either case, we're here. And God keeps us, so we'll take this slow and easy. So I think most of the people who are listeners at this moment have personal access to me. So I'm pretty sure we already talk a lot on WhatsApp. And this episode is specially dedicated to Christian. Christian sent me 5 gig to do podcast and said, if his data holding you. Oh no, I promise I'm not, I know, Sapasha, but I'm not that broke. I'm so grateful. Thank you, Christian. This episode is dedicated to you, this one and the next after it, because it's a full story. And the story we're telling today doesn't end today. So today's story is One for All. Who remembers anything One for All? Like the Musketeers, all for one for all. I mean, I watch a lot of the Tania series, with this guy, Antonio Banderas, the Musketeers, his version, even the one with his daughter and things like that. And I loved those movies so much, because they're like this movie series, like AB part 1, 2, and 3, and then the daughter's own. I kind of remember much of what happened. I just like the fact that, these guys always seem to be jonesing about Musketeers, save the king, honorable, and, they just had fun, stuff like that. I just really was into the idea so much. So when I saw this book, One for All, a book on female Musketeers, I was like, yes, let's do it, let's go, and things like that. Do you know at the time that I'm recording this, I don't yet have a name for the title for this podcast episode or the story description. I know. What are you saying there? Just know that Isha came up at the moment I was uploading. So in either case, let's dive into the story. So this is One for All by Lily Lainoff. I actually had to look her up on Instagram and followed. So by the time the story riffs of this one, novel riffs of this one is ready, I'll tag her and things like that. So she's actually kind of active on Instagram, so that's good. She know we told her story. Okay, so this story is set in 1655, the 17th century. It begins in a town called Lupiac in France. Tania and her mother returned to their house in the evening because they had gone to the market, and then they noticed there were intruders inside. These intruders hadn't bothered to mark their presence because, the kitchen was scattered, pots strewn everywhere, crushed tomatoes splattered to the wall, flour covered every surface, and her father wasn't home. He was away on a business trip. Tania summoned courage to go inside, inside the main house quietly. Although her mother was like, stay outside now, stay outside. Her mother was remained at the front gate. So Tania heard intruders. They were talking. They were actually searching for information in her father's cabinet. The closest weapon that was worthwhile, the other things she could have used as weapon, but then they don't want close combat. This is that. She's like, okay, the best to use now is the fire poker. And she gripped the iron of the fire poker and pretended it was her sword. So 2 cloaked men were in her father's studies, and while one was keeping watch by the window, the other one was rifling through her father's things. Tania and her mother, they had taken a shortcut home and not the main road that the men were watching out for them on. They didn't know that, mother and daughter were back home. Then one of them commented that if the wife and little invalid daughter of the Bads is her family, her surname, Tanya's surname, and that's her father. Like if they, like her and her mother show up, that they will kill them. So that when her father finds their corpses, he would learn not to stick his nose where it didn't belong. So they were not watching out for them to see them and run away. They were watching out for them to kill them if they came back. And so, obviously, as Tania heard this thing, because initially she was thinking it was mere robbers. So when she heard this thing she didn't know when she now made a noise. And then one of the men now saw her and now approached her. So Tania was like, don't move, kind of thing. She tried to get into a fighting position, but she was dizzy. Her legs trembled. Her vision blurred. Now, Tania constantly had she's constantly dizzy. Her legs constantly tremble, and her visions, any small things, to be as if her world is swimming. She can't really see well. So that's why they call her everybody. So that her reputation of being sick is popular. Like the entire village knows that the daughter of the Bads is not well. So you now find people who call her poor, Tania, like sick Tania and things like that. Poor and invalid Tania. So in today's world, this condition of Tania's sickness is known as postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, POTS. It was first diagnosed in 1993. That's 3 centuries after Tania's time. So this POTS is a chronic illness that's most often diagnosed in young women, and maybe why in past centuries women's health complaints were dismissed as, these women are being hysteric and they don't know what they're talking about. So the person who wrote this novel, this Lily Lainoff, she also has this POTS, this postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And she wrote Tania's character, Tania's experience of this chronic illness based on her own experience as a chronically ill young woman. So the writer wrote this novel with a sick main character because it's not what we normally see in books. It's mostly healthy girls are portrayed in books, hardly any disabled person. You see a sick person or a disabled person being the main character. It's not what we normally see. And the thing about Tania's illness is that she doesn't look that sick. Do you understand? You're like, if she tells you, I'm sick, you're like, you don't look that sick. And she has to live with dizziness. Modern doctors say that POTS symptoms are most common to congestive heart failure symptoms, like racing heart, your blood pressure would drop and things like that. Even today, POTS patients have to see multiple doctors for up to 6 years before getting diagnosed, like an average of actually 5 years, 11 months, but nearly 6 years. So oftentimes doctors will tell patients of POTS that their symptoms are, in quotes, all in their head. Back to our story. Tania would have been in serious trouble had it not been for the sound of carriage wheels approaching. It was the police of their time, known as Mera, Suro, or something, one French word. Her mother must have been the one to call them, obviously. So in the men's haste to escape through the window, they knocked down a lantern and it started a fire. Remember, Tania was feeling extremely weak. However, she managed to grab a jug of water, put out the fire before it became serious. But then she was like, I let the intruders escape. This is that. If only she'd been stronger, faster, and wasn't dizzy. And before she knew it, she fainted because her head was already swimming so bad. By the time she woke up, her father's face was what she saw, and he was back. And apparently she was passed out for 5 minutes. He was worried. And then Tania was like, Daddy, Papa, this happened. But he cut her off. He's like, don't worry. I came back home early to surprise you. And the thing is, Tania's Papa, that's what she called him fondly. He's a retired musketeer. What he did after retirement was he traveled to nearby towns upon the invitation of, wealthy local would invite him, come and establish a new fencing academy. Fencing now, who doesn't know? Okay. On guard. When they say on guard, like in Tom and Jerry that time, they'll now use those their thin cells. Bah, boo, bah, bah. They'll now fight. This person will now do this footwork, do the front. The other person now parry you back. You now go back. That on guard thing. That's fencing. Yes? That's it. So that's musketeers are usually extremely good fencers, and Tania's dad is one of the best fencers there is, her papa. So either way, it's not that he has retired. So what he used to do now is wealthy local will invite him. He'll go and establish fencing academy there. You come back. Although Tania's dad, he's an ideal candidate for head swordsman, and he has received plenty requests. Come and be one now. But then he would turn them down. He was content with just giving freelance and fencing lessons, and then they'll pay him. Tania was like in her head, she used to think that the reason her father used to like to visit other towns was so he could see his friends, his comrades from his days in service of La Maison de Roy. La Maison. Jesus Christ. My French I go struggle with for this story. But anyhow, La Maison de Roy, carry like that. It means the royal household of the King of France. So, now her father once served the household of the King of France now. So he has friends and comrades. So now that all of them are scattered across the country, when he goes out of town, sometimes he meets some of these people. So Tania used to believe that the reason her father likes to travel is just so he can meet those his friends and relieve his days as a musketeer. Do you understand? So Tania believed that her father wanted to return to being a musketeer. That's what she secretly believed. But enough of that background now. So as Tania is awake now, she told her father, there were two robbers, and then they even said something about killing Maman. Maman is her mom. And me. So her papa looked murderous. So he was so angry. Then her mama entered the room and told Papa, you came back unexpectedly. You have to wait because it will take me some time to find food for you, because our kitchen is, they scattered the kitchen. And then her mama also scolded Tania for trying to play hero. She's like, you're just a sick girl. Don't think you are some kind of hero. Tania's sickness started when she was 12 years old. It had set in slowly, and neither the doctors nor the priests, they've seen many doctors, they've even gone to church priests, none of them could help her. So Tania didn't like how her mama started to look at her since she fell sick. She looked at her as, I blame your body, do you understand? And it made Tania feel small and insignificant. She wanted her mama to look at her as a strong person. So that night of the attack, this is the day the attack took place. So that night, Tania, she woke up in the middle of the night. She overheard her parents talking. Tania's room used to be her father's library. But when Tania became sick, because of the dizzy legs, the trembling legs and everything, now she couldn't climb up the stairs again. So they now had to make her turn her father's library into her new room. So Tania, because it's on the ground floor, now Tania pressed her ear against the far wall. She overheard her parents talking. Her mama was like, I don't understand what I did wrong. That instead of giving you, she was telling her papa now, like Tania's papa, that's her husband. So mama was saying, instead of giving you a son, I gave you a broken daughter. Mama told papa, you have to stop training Tania in fencing. At least, even though we know that's okay, she's not the son I should have given you, and she's sick. Either ways, this fencing you're teaching her is not going to help her future. Instead, she should learn woman's skills so that we can find somewhere to marry her off to, that they'll take care of her when we're no longer here. So her father was like, I will figure it out. But normally what her father used to say is he'll shake his head and be like, she's Tania. And that thing used to frustrate her mother. But in this case, her father was like, we'll figure it out. His response has changed. The thing got Tania worried. But anyhow, 6 months later, Tania had an unfortunate incident at the market. 4 girls that she had grown up with, they'd been friends, or, like I said, her sickness started at 12. So they taunted her. Now that Tania is currently 16, and they're now taunting her for being sick. They're like, hey, you have to hold walls constantly to keep standing. And it pained Tanya. Because among these girls, a particular girl there, Margaret, she used to be her best friend, Tanya's best friend when they were little. And their birthdays were close together. So her and Tanya used to even celebrate together. And there was even a year that Tanya's family and Margaret's family, they traveled to a lake together. I mean, this is someone you have so many precious memories with. And all of that ended 4 years ago when Tanya was 12. And so Tanya, on this day at the market, she was carrying a basket of wildflowers, and the girls ridiculed her, saying it was a shame that she talked to no boys. Why even carrying wildflowers basket? It's not like you give it to any boy, because you don't talk to boys and you probably never get married. So after enduring that thing, and she got to the part of her house, Tanya stumbled on a loose stone. That kind of thing. You're already having a bad day, and you almost want to fall. But before she could fall, there's a fence her father had to build around their house, 4 years ago when Tanya's business started, so that she could be holding it whenever she wants to walk around. So she held it so she didn't fall. Now the flowers were for her mom, and after she gave those flowers to her mom, and her mom was like, oh, you're going to do some embroidery. Tanya did not take up the embroidery. She didn't plan to give up her sword for a needle and thread. Not as much as she loves her mother, she wants to please her mother. But she's like, when it comes to this fencing, are you wanting me to do embroidery? No, that's not your choice. So that sort of thing. But she's never confronted her mom about it. Tanya's mama is a widowed Viscountess daughter. I don't know how high a Viscountess position is, but from what I've seen in the book, it's pretty high. I don't know the equivalent for it in English titles yet. Do you understand? But it's a noble, they are nobles now, they are blue bloods. So her mama is actually a blue blood daughter. So her mama is a blue blood herself who fell in love with a man beneath her social status. That's Tanya's papa. And after she made it clear, after Tanya's mama made it clear to her father, the Viscount, that, see, this man I'm saying, he's not a flink. Her father cut her off. It didn't matter that her papa is a Musketeer, a hero of France. He's not from a wealthy home. Usually, Musketeers, King Louis can reward you with land and titles. But in many cases, when he did not, and you're a Musketeer from a humble background, you will leave service the same way you came in. So actually, many Musketeers in Papa's time, they were not even, hardly would a Musketeer come from a humble background. They mostly used to, now, even as it is in Nigeria today, some parents that are already in high positions will write letter for their child, pay money so that their child can be accepted as Musketeer. You understand? So to see, when you see someone from a humble background being a Musketeer, that person really had skills. I mean, the person used mad skills to get there. So people like Papa who got in with their skill, there were few. However, because Papa fell in love with Maman, he had to give up being a Musketeer to be a family man, to move out of Paris, to go to their small town Lupiac, especially because Tanya was born. So this was a version of events Papa told Tanya when she was little. As an older girl, she suspected that her father was forced out of service by Maman's father, the Viscount, because her father his version of events had been, I was having you now, so I had to leave being a Musketeer to come and look out for my family. But something told Tanya, this is Papa is telling me, I think it's my grandfather, my mommy's father, that forced him out, that used his influence to force him out of service. Because nobles can be crazy like that. So Mama and Papa's story, it would have been a romantic story with a happy ending had they had a healthy child. But they had to have Tanya. And they now spend so much because of her health challenges. So after her parents moved to Lupiac, they didn't return to Paris for a long time because they were avoiding running into Mama's father, the terror of a man. So by the time he died, her grandfather died and they could return, Tanya was already sick. Good money had been spent on her illness. And then to buy a house in Paris or pay for a house or rent is expensive. So her father had money. Some money his parents had left him, and he worked as a Musketeer. They paid him. He had some good money, but it's not enough to maintain a lifestyle in Paris. Do you understand? That money can do more in Lupiac, where they're staying, than in Paris. Shasha, Papa continued to train Tanya in fencing. He taught her that a fight won't always be fair, because there was one time they were fighting and Papa attacked before Tanya could be ready to fight him. And Papa told her, see, many people you fight, they don't have honor of musketeers. So she'll just be ready to fight at any time. So her Papa talked about the musketeers with fondness. It made Tanya desire that, I want something like this. So to be part of something like a female musketeers, although she knew that such a thing did not exist. Not long after, this whole thing that her and her father training and things like that, there's a couple that came to visit her parents, the Tremonts. Let's call them the Tremonts. Leave that pronunciation. So they came with their son, and look at the thing about the reason this couple came to visit is that her parents, Tanya's parents, or rather specifically her mom, because the father cannot talk now because he knows the mother is trying to do the best for their child. But obviously it's not the best he wants for Tanya. But Tanya doesn't have so much choices, given that she's sick and all that. So these Tremons, they came to visit her parents with their son because they want to arrange for their son and Tanya to marry. Do you understand? Now, we've never talked about how Tanya looks. Tanya is dark-haired. I think dark-eyed or brown-eyed. And she's not plump. Girls in that time, the beauty standard in Tanya's time, as of 1655, is that you are plump, you are chubby, But Tanya is not like that. She's more of muscular and curvy, more of one of these maybe models that shall have some body, but not like they're like but that kind of thing. Somebody that gyms well and has good curves. She's a fencer now. So her parents were trying to get Tanya married to this guy, and they didn't tell the family, these Tremont people, that Tanya is, look at the extent of Tanya's sickness. So, do you understand? It's just, when the parents, the Tremont people asked, but why did she not come to Paris for this season? They were like, she was feeling weak that time, so she had been unable to travel, but she's fine now. So, unfortunately for the parents now, because they left Tanya and Jackie's, because it's not exactly Jack, but let's call it Jack. They left Tanya and Jack to stroll the gardens, get to know each other. Jack was not interested in learning anything about Tanya. He was just this distant, polite, oh, okay. Tanya was just like, how am I supposed to live with this person? And the thing now made her feel sorry for herself. So she stood up too quickly from a bench they were sitting on, and then the dizziness hit her. So Jackie's helped her. He studied how this Jack guy and said, okay, don't worry, I understand. He doesn't understand anything. Shah carried her inside. Then he told his parents about, this is how Tanya had gotten sick, or she was dizzy. I don't know if it's like that. Then his family now said, are people trying to spring a sick girl on us? Bring sickness that we don't know into our generation? They now left. So Tanya's mama, she was upset. After this incident, the distance between Tanya and her mama increased. Her papa tried to make her understand that, see, your mama is only worried about you. She's thinking about your future. One won't be here to care for you. Do you understand? But Tanya didn't like that her mother was trying to stop her from fencing, especially because her mother didn't seem to understand that Tanya, because Tanya is a fencer, she does that fencing thing. It makes her strong. It's a form of exercise that helps her to stay less dizzy. Her situation might even be worse if she was the kind of person that is just embroidering or just doing ladylike things. But the fact that she is, what do you call that thing? Stretching herself like that is making the dizziness lesser than it should be. So not long after the Tremont people, came and left, Papa announced that he's leaving for work. It's been 6 months since the last time he traveled. Tanya now accused her father, you're not really going to work, you understand, because you don't like humoring noblemen. She's not like, I know the real reason you're traveling. You're traveling to see your musketeer friends and reminisce on your days as a musketeer. Her father was like, what kind of talk is this one? But he found it funny, Sha. So he just kissed her forehead and told her that don't worry, I'll be back by sundown tomorrow. He saddled his horse Bo and left her with one last instruction. Keep your sword in your room tonight, just in case now those people came back. So the next day, Tanya went to the market. That day that her father said he's coming back in the evening. She ran into that set of girls she had met the other time, Margaret and co. So one of them hit her arm and she fell on the cobblestone. Do you understand? And she was carrying things she bought. And she's a dizzy person. And so if this girl did not have a fencer's training and didn't know how to fall, she might have cracked her skull. and that would have been her death. Instead, she used her palms as a brace and, to catch herself, but she couldn't hold on to those things that she bought. The sugar sprayed, the eggs broke, messed up her skirt, and she felt pain all over her body. None of them tried to help her out. They just laughed. And then, because she had to half crawl, half walk away, holding the wall for support, they were laughing at her. Some people, they will not make heaven. Like, this someone that is not well. So Tania went home to clean herself. It was now waiting patiently for her father to return. But instead, a carriage arrived, and a man she had never seen before stepped out of it. He broke the sad news to Tania, Mama, and Papa was dead. Apparently, it was highway bandits who killed him. But Mama didn't believe that for a second. She knew her husband, that he had once dwelled 3 men at the same time with his left hand. Papa was found dead at a location where the main road met the path to the Vernon residence. Please take note of that name, Vernon. Do you understand? Because there will be a major name in this novel. So her father was found dead at a location where the main road connected to the path of the Vernon residence. Because that means apparently he was going to the Vernon residence or coming from there, and this thing happened. So Papa's corpse, it was not enough that these so-called highway bandits killed him. They desecrated his corpse, means they treated it with disrespect. They cut off his beard and hair. They stole his sword and clothes. So that it was even difficult to identify that it was Papa when they saw the corpse first. Safe. Do you understand? So the Monsieur Allard that even brought news of Papa's death, he didn't want Tania Maman to say his roommate, the whole your woman, your sensibilities, that sort of thing. Tania was angry because they weren't going to investigate to find out about Papa's killer. She knew that it's because Papa does not have money. If Papa was a rich man like this, police would have worked hard so at least demands that Papa's family can reward them with money. Do you understand? But Papa was just a retired musketeer. In her pain, because this whole thing was happening in the night, Tania burst into the night. She grabbed the stakes of the fence. That fence her father had built for her. You know stake, how it looks like now? That has a triangular mouth. This girl used her bare hands on that thing to break it into shards. So she ended up wounding her palms. So that's how her mama found her, treated her. In the morning, with that bandaged arm, Tania went to practice fencing because that's the only way she could deal with the pain in her heart. She just ignored the pain that she was feeling under the bandages, the dizziness. Mama found her there and scolded her for opening her wounds. Tania was like, I didn't open my wounds. So, and at the same time, Tania also tried to explain to Mama and Dad, see how fencing needs to help me. See, I can even fence when I'm dizzy. And even though I'm not that skilled yet, I'm passionate. Mama replied her, see, your dizziness changes everything. You need to be married and safe. If you were a normal girl, you might have considered this thing, but I know you're a normal girl. So she now ended the argument by inviting Tania to read a letter that her papa had written in case he died on his trip. So the letter left the house to Mama to do as she wished. Papa knew Mama wanted to move closer to her brother and spend time with her nieces and nephews. There was a folded part of the letter that Mama didn't let Tania read because it was private. So after that private part of the letter, the next part was that, Papa made arrangements for Tania at Madame de Treville's Academy. Apparently, it's a prestigious academy of influence that would help Tania. And Tania, she just hated the academy because of his name, L'Académie des Maris, the academy for wives. Tania couldn't believe that her father would send her off to a school where she would be groomed to marry a man as old as her papa just because he was rich and noble. So Papa's letter was evidence that he knew someone was after his life. The fact that he wrote letter in case he would not come back. So Tania is like, that she wants revenge for her papa's death. But Mama was tired. She had been fighting different things, different people for years. She looked so lost and Tania wished she could give her strength. Finally, Tania agreed to attend this Madame de Treville's Academy since it's what her father wanted. But it was paining her. She didn't agree to go because she thought there might be a place for her there. She just said, at least this academy is in France. It will take me to France. And when I get to France, maybe I'll find the Musketeers and ask for their help. And that thing is that she's like, does this madame even know the extent of my dizziness? Maybe my father did not tell her. If this lady finds out I'm this dizzy and this sick, the lady might even throw me out. She may not want me running her academy. So 2 weeks after her papa's death, Tania left for Paris. It was her first time traveling that far from Lupiac. She had always imagined that when she would make that kind of far trip, it would be with her father by her side. And then she now remembered the question she'd asked me a long while ago. How am I supposed to fence when I'm so dizzy? Like one of those days when he was training her. He's like, look at what he said. You're right. The dizziness is a problem. Tania was like, how can you say that? Her father is like, the dizziness is a problem. That's why you have to be better than everyone else. You have to work harder, train harder, ensure your muscles remembers the actions. You have to be in tune with your opponents so that you can feel when they're going to attack, feel it in the air shift, see it and how their body tenses before it lunges. Then it wouldn't matter if you're dizzy, because even if you're not as fast, grabbing onto the wall for support, even if your opponent's body is a blow, you would know exactly what to do in each and every moment because of muscle memory. So as she remembered this thing, it's just like, oh my gosh, she missed her father. Normally, it would take 2 weeks to travel from Dupiac to Paris. Tania arrived earlier to Paris because Maman paid for horses to be exchanged twice along the way. And the reason her Maman did this, even though it's cost more, is that they had received a letter from Madame de Treville that people should hurry and bring Tania, because even the last girl here had arrived like 2 months ago. The social season is looming, that we have to train her, so bring her quickly. So before we go further, into Paris and things like this, I need to give you a background of the political times, because it will help you understand the reason why musketeers are needed and why some things in France, because now you've already started seeing some corruption in terms of nobles are richer, they are preferred, poor people in Salon, whatever people are doing, you're on your own. Do you understand? So when Tania was 9 years old, Tania is currently 16, so this happened many years ago. La Fronde, the civil wars ended. They understand, when she was 9 years old. However, her father told her all the stories from the letters that his friends had written to him, those who are in the battlefield on the war front. He wanted her to know exactly what he'd fought for. The reason why there was even a civil war in the first place was because the Grand Conde, the king's cousin, was trying to grab monarchical power for himself. So at the end of the civil wars, he was exiled along with many other nobles who supported him. To Papa, Conde was the worst kind of man because he allowed himself to be ruled by lust for power. This was a cousin who had helped the king subdue a parliamentary uprising, only to turn around and try to take the man out. So the job of the musketeers is simple: protect the king. That's how they protect France. Because musketeers understand that a transfer of power will result in deaths of thousands of innocent people. Like when there is a transfer of power, maybe a king is changed and another king comes on power. It's not the king that will die first. It's a lot of innocent people who are not even involved in this thing. So those are the people the musketeers are trying to protect by protecting the king. After La Fronde, the nobles who hadn't been exiled, they were afraid because they might lose their titles and positions in court. They eagerly returned to the social seasons of before. They distracted themselves with parties, suitors, marriage prospects. And nobles, they are extreme snobs. The only thing that tops their snobbery is when they are trying to curry favor from the royal family. So Tania arrived at the academy now, and it's nothing like she expected. There weren't a lot of household staff. It was almost quiet. Tania was nervous about meeting Madame de Treville because she was afraid of what the woman's reaction might be when she discovered her condition. It was crystal clear to Tania at this moment that I need Madame de Treville if I'm to seek out any musketeer. It's not something I can do by myself. So Papa never told her, and the reason being that Papa, he never told her the names of his brothers in arms. He only used their nicknames when he was telling her stories. Tania didn't ask because she thought that, her daddy had time. She couldn't ask Mama neither because Mama would be like, what are you using that information for? You understand? Don't do revenge. Leave it. So her only hope right now is to get information from Madame de Treville. So the next morning, Tania met Portia, one of the girls who was under Madame de Treville's training. It wasn't the finest first impression. Tania was walking down the hallway because she didn't know where to go. Then Portia showed up and was like, why are you walking around there? Follow me to Madame's study. She acted as if she was irritated to be the one to have this task of taking the new girl around. She didn't try to have a conversation while they were walking, just faced her front. Once she reached the door of Madame's studies, Portia turned around and left. So meeting Madame de Treville was like nothing Tania had expected. For one, she was expecting that this Madame would be wearing the latest fashion clothes. Madame was just wearing a simple grey dress. Her style was in a low bun, the way she styled her hair. But the thing is, the dress was noticeably of quality material. The lady didn't wear any jewelry, not one. And the greatest sign that she was a lady was that her back didn't touch the chair of her seat. The madam was blunt. She told Tania that, if not for your father, I wouldn't have considered accepting you because it's too close to the social system to train a young lady. She now quickly assessed Tania and told her that, I'm not going to waste my time on a girl who's confused about what she wants in life. Is that being here in this academy, is it truly what you want? Tania was like, yes, I want this. To be the wife of a rich, influential member of the noblesse. Yes, is what I want. Obviously, it's not what she wants. So the madame could tell this guy is lying. And she knew the truth all the more. Apart from being able to tell, she knew the truth because Tania's father had written a letter to her about the kind of person my daughter is and what she wants. So she now said, okay, come, Tania, I'm going to show you something. So she now took her through the house. They now arrived at this staircase. And Tania was like, oh my God, I have to climb stairs. But okay, let me manage and climb so I should not know that my case is that bad. But Madame was like, don't be ridiculous. Don't try to climb those stairs. Instead, there was a pulley. Like, you know how if you watch all these ancient films, and they're trying to build a house, there's a pulley where they'll put things on and the person down and up would pull consecutively so that it would pull up and then they will now offload it. So the pulley like that was there. So Tania and Madam went up the stairs to the first landing. Her and Tania walked together to pull up the harness and things like that. So as they now pulled it up and Tania stepped out to the landing. Do you understand? So they had actually designed a pulley for Tania ahead of time. Like that to say they were ready for her, this madam. So there was a hallway, when they arrived at the landing. And to the left of the hallway, there were two large archways. They were the size of the first floor, the entire first floor of Tania's house. The madam asked Tania, why do you think your father sent you to this place? Tania parroted what her mom had said. The academy has an excellent reputation and girls would kill to get admitted here. But I was like, but what would you kill for or fight for? Reluctantly, Tania replied that she was fighting for her family name, the badge, for her father, and for Madame. The Madame knew that Tania was trying to flatter her by that last statement. She just laughed humorlessly. She now told Tania that she was, obviously you can tell that I know of your condition, your health condition very well. That's why my nephew Henry, he built this pulley so that you will not faint because we are taking steps. Henry said, and so this is her nephew Henry. We're still going to meet the guy. He's such a sweetheart in this story. He loves to try new things, invent stuff. And then Portia, that same Portia that was kind of rudish to Tania, she loves to tease Henry in a way that is almost cruel. Okay, but not like, some people can joke like that, even among siblings. But still, you see the joke later, like how she used to tease him. Now, Madame explained to Tania that she wouldn't have gone to this length of building something like pulley for somebody that cannot take steps. I'll not do that kind of thing for anybody. I just did it because of who your father was. That he was my close friend when we were young. He had written to me of his only child who was so brave that she'd fall every day, but she still pursued what she wanted without giving up. Yet, the girl he wrote to me about and you, they are not matching. Because the girl before me, she's willing to settle. She's not even brave enough to tell me the truth. So the way Madame said it, the thing got Tania angry. And next thing Tania knew, her sword that was supposed to be safely hidden in her bus. Because she's not supposed to carry sword to come to school for Academy of Wives. But she carried her sword. That sword that was supposed to be safely hidden in her bag, the thing skated across the floor like somebody threw it for her. She caught it. Then Tania now asked what Madame wanted from her. Madame replied that she wanted to see if Tania's father was exaggerated. Madame grabbed her own sword and attacked Tania, like out of the blue. But Tania had been trained well by her father for surprise attacks now. So she now started parrying the Madame instinctively. So Tania felt multiple sets of eyes watching her fight with Madame. She focused on everything her father taught her, despite she wasn't even wearing breeches, trousers, she was not ready for this fight. Then after a while, Tania's wrist hurt so much. So she dropped her sword and collided, she just held the foot, fell against the wall to keep standing. She's like, in her head, she's like, what's happening? Am I dwelling like someone who's supposed to be the head of an academy that grooms wives? Although she was dizzy, before she passed out because Tania fainted, she heard Portia's voice ask, Madame de Treville, did she pass? And in reply, Madame nodded. So from the way the story closed, you have an idea now that more exciting things are coming. I mean, you're supposed to go to an academy of wives, and it turns out to be, a place they're training elite women spies, and you're only one of the 4. So that's a bit of what do you call it, a spoiler, but it's not really a spoiler. So come back next week, because I'm like I said, I'm just going to be releasing an episode per week until things are stable on my end. Then we'll continue 2 episodes a week. Do you understand? So but by God's grace, rest assured, there'll be a new episode every Monday. So on Monday we'll come back and we'll finish the story. At least I hope. If I don't finish it next week Monday, we might now have an episode on Thursday to just round it up, so that I will not keep you waiting too long. Just pray I have power and time, please. I will have power and time. I will have. Okay. So in either case, thank you so much for hanging out with me today, neighbor. And this has been such a pleasure. Please don't forget to rate this podcast anywhere you listen. Tell someone about it. And I'll see you next week. Okay. Bye.